The first sound I remember wasn't the judge's gavel or the shuffle of papers. It was laughter sharp and confident, the kind that tells you the ending before the story even starts. I was sitting at the defense table in a borrowed suit that didn't quite fit palms flat so no one would see them shaking, while the lead prosecutor leaned back in his chair and laughed like this whole thing was entertainment. He looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Come on. We're supposed to believe this kid masterminded a tech crime worth millions." The room followed his lead. Smiles, smirks, a few quiet chuckles. And just like that, I was no longer a person, I was a punchline. My name didn't matter to them. My story didn't matter. What mattered was how I looked. Young, broke, out of place. The kind of guy people think they already understand in 5 seconds. The prosecutor, Martin Caldwell, was famous in that courthouse. Expensive suits, perfect hair, a record that made him untouchable. He didn't argue cases, he performed them. And that morning, I was his prop. He paced in front of the jury talking about cybercrime like it was some dark art, then waved a hand in my direction and joked that I probably thought encryption was something you put on your phone by accident. Even the jury looked uncomfortable, but no one stopped him. That's how power works. You let it talk. I told myself to breathe. Slow, in, out, because fear was exactly what he expected. What he didn't expect was how tired I felt. Not tired like sleepy tired, like you've been underestimated so many times it stops hurting and starts boring you. The charges were serious grand theft of proprietary software, corporate espionage fraud. According to them, I hacked a financial analytics firm, stole an algorithm, and tried to sell it. According to the prosecutor, I was either a criminal genius or a lucky idiot. Either way, guilty. My court-appointed attorney stumbled through an opening statement that lasted maybe 2 minutes. No fire, no confidence, just survival. I could already feel the walls closing in. That's when Caldwell pushed for the technical evidence to be submitted in bulk, no detailed explanation, just trust us. He even said it out loud that the defense probably wouldn't understand it anyway. The judge hesitated, glanced at my lawyer, then nodded. And something in me snapped. Not anger. Clarity. I leaned forward and said quietly, "The logs are incomplete." It wasn't dramatic. I didn't raise my voice, but the room went still. Caldwell turned around like he'd heard a dog speak. "Excuse me," he said, smiling. I explained that the server logs were missing handshake data, that without it the source of the connection couldn't be verified. He laughed again, called it jargon, told me to leave the law to professionals. But the judge was listening, and that was the moment everything changed. From there, Caldwell tried to shut me down fast. He objected, called it an outburst, made jokes about me watching too much TV. I let him. I leaned back, nodded, said nothing. Because I wasn't trying to win the room yet. I was letting him get comfortable. The trial rolled on, witness after witness, repeating the same story. The company's tech director swore the breach came from my address. A housing supervisor described me as antisocial, always on my laptop talking about money. Caldwell tied it all together with a neat little bow. Motive, means, opportunity. He smiled at the jury like it was already over. Then he looked at me again and made another joke, something about me planning my next score. I met his eyes and said, "I'm planning your disbarment." The room gasped. The judge warned me. One more word and I'd be removed. So instead of arguing, I stood up and asked to represent myself. You could feel the shock ripple through the room. Caldwell actually laughed out loud. He wanted it. Thought I'd drown in procedure. The judge warned me too, said I was young untrained, that Caldwell would destroy me. I told him my lawyer had missed basic objections, and if I was going to lose it, wouldn't be because I didn't fight. After a long pause, he agreed. Pro se. Caldwell's smile widened. Mine didn't. The first thing I did was address the story Caldwell had built about me. He'd mocked my education, called me unqualified, so I introduced a document into evidence. A degree. Not just any degree, a law degree and a computer science master's. Earned quietly. Recently. When the judge read it, his posture changed. When Caldwell read it, his face went pale. He called it fake. I explained I tested out of school early, studied at night, worked freelance jobs to survive. He checked surface records. He never checked deeper. The room went silent, the kind of silence that presses against your ears, and in that silence the narrative cracked. From there, I stopped defending myself and started asking questions. I cross-examined the housing supervisor about the winter. The heat broke the night she cried because there was no money to fix it. I showed the jury a payment receipt. Money I earned debugging servers. Money I sent to keep the building warm. I wasn't hacking. I was working. She broke down. The jury saw the assumptions for what they were. Caldwell didn't even bother redirecting. He was watching control slip through his fingers. Then I went after the technical heart of the case. I brought the company's tech director back and asked about latency, about physics, not opinions. The logs Caldwell submitted showed response times impossible over distance. Those speeds only happen locally, inside the building. I asked about the developer key used in the breach, a key only a handful of executives had. When the director swore no one touched his terminal but him, he didn't realize he'd trapped himself. The judge leaned forward. The jury leaned forward. Caldwell sat down slowly, like gravity finally found him. After the break, Caldwell tried to stop the damage by resting his case early. Too late. I called the detective who led the arrest. Asked about the anonymous tip. There was no tip, no record. Under oath, he admitted the call came directly from Caldwell. The courtroom exploded. I showed metadata from the files found on my computer, digital fingerprints, names, timestamps. Caldwell's name, offshore accounts, a consulting payment made before my arrest. This wasn't about justice. The company was failing. They needed an insurance claim. They needed a scapegoat. They needed someone no one would defend. My final witness was a former engineer from the company, a whistleblower who survived a suspicious accident. He told the jury about hidden financial routines, about executives ordering silence, about reaching out to Caldwell for legal help and being betrayed. When he pointed at Caldwell and named him Caldwell, invoked his right to remain silent over and over, his voice cracking. But data doesn't stay silent. Money doesn't stay silent. Survivors don't stay silent. I asked the judge to dismiss all charges. He didn't hesitate. Granted. He ordered Caldwell detained. Federal agents walked in before the gavel echo faded. The executive was arrested, trying to flee. Caldwell was handcuffed in the same room where he once ruled. As they took him away, he spat one last insult at me. I leaned in and told him I didn't destroy anything. I just fixed what was broken. Months later, he wore a uniform not so different from the one he mocked. I went back to my neighborhood and opened a small legal and tech advocacy office. Not for revenge, for balance. I kept my degrees on the wall, but what mattered more was the door staying open. When a kid walked in saying no one believed him, I saw myself. I told him to sit down, to breathe, to start talking. So here's the question I'll leave you with. How many people have been judged before they ever spoke? How many stories ended early because someone laughed first? Was this justice or just luck meeting preparation? And how many times have you seen power mistake confidence for truth? Drop your thoughts below. Argue. Agree, disagree. Because the moment we stop questioning who gets believed, the system starts laughing again.